Guys, this is Dr. Huffpower coming to you from my home studio here in Alvin, Texas. I am the host of the Dear Doc podcast, and today we are going to be talking to several experts about hygiene compensation, but most specifically, we'll be speaking about hygiene pay on production. Hey folks, welcome to the Dear Doc podcast, where we discuss the practical aspects of running your dental practice, as well as the technology, softwares, and services that can help to empower you as a dentist. I'm your host, Doc Huffpower. Thanks for joining us for today's episode. Is your resume or job posting just not being seen? You need a better plan. Whether you're looking for a permanent or temporary position or looking to hire, at Cloud Dentistry, we have you covered. We connect practices with verified professionals interested in temp and permanent work. Sign up for your free account in just 2 easy steps. Go to www.clouddentistry.com and start browsing the dental talent in your area today. We had a little bit of a hiccup, so for those of you who are already joining us, my apologies. Next time, I will be smart enough to turn my microphone on. First, we're going to talk to Dr. Bridget Jorgensen. Dr. Jorgensen, talk to us a little bit about your background.
Hello. I started as a hygienist and then went back to dental school. I graduated from Southern Illinois University in 1992. I started a scratch practice in 1994 in Sugar Hill, Georgia. So it's a suburb of Atlanta. So I've been a dentist almost 30 years.
Fantastic. Kara Kelly.
I'm Kara Kelly. I am a dental HR consultant based out of Austin, Texas, and I've been working with dental practices for the past 10 plus years as an HR business partner. And for the past 3 of those, it's been for my company, Clinical HR.
Fantastic. Nicole Vane, tag in, please.
I am Nicole Vane. I am a dentist in San Diego, California, and I've been practicing for 20 years, but I've owned my practice for just about 10 years.
Fantastic. And Ana Fernandez.
Hello, my name is Ana Fernandez, and I started in dentistry when I was in high school. Then I decided to go back to school and I became a dental hygienist. I practiced for about 12 years and I had the opportunity to work side by side with Dr. Hoffpower for about 4 to 5 years almost. And now I work for Delivering Wow. It's a coaching company. And so it's been a really neat journey.
Excellent. So guys, I'd like to remind you that we are live here. If you do have any kind of questions that you would like to address to the group, or if you would like one specific person in the group to answer that question, please go ahead and drop a comment down below the video and we will do our best to get to you in good order. So let's go ahead and start off real quick about hygiene pay by production. Ana, talk to us a little bit about how hygienists can wrap their head around this. I know that you and I, Ana used to work with me. And I put together the spreadsheet and I brought it out to her one day. And this was pretty early in our career together. And I showed her, I said, okay, look, if you're being paid on production with a base cap, that you're going to be paid $500 per day, plus you're going to be paid this much, over $500 per day, and this is how much you'll make based on what you're producing now. She looked at me like what a deer in the headlights. She turned absolutely ghost white, and I think she backed away slowly. So she wasn't really fond of the idea. But as we grew together in the practice, I know that her opinions changed, and now, particularly as she's helping other dentists to become more profitable in their practice, I know that your opinions have changed there too. So do me a favor, go ahead and talk to us a little bit about that.
Absolutely. I think my mindset was in a different place back then. When we go to hygiene school, we're taught to see our patients and, try to deliver the best care possible. So the whole business side, I had no idea of what I was doing. And it was scary when he put it down for me that way. I mean, it made sense, but at the same time, I was worried, okay, what if my patients don't show up? What am I going to do in those situations? So a lot of it stemmed from fear, and I was really afraid, I think, because I was just still really green. And so that kind of just steered me away. And I was more of, okay, I just rather get paid per hour because I don't want to take that risk of coming to work and not making, my day's worth of production.
Well, I know that you, and guys, if any of you here on the panel have any questions for Ana regarding those feelings or regarding her perceptions as a hygienist currently, Please feel free to tag in here. But I know one of the things that we talked about was that fear equation. And I remember you told me I don't have any control of that.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel about that now?
I definitely feel that now with what I've learned through the past and all of the different things that I've done, I definitely feel that you have more control when you start to build relationships with your patients, build the value of it all, and holding your team accountable and helping you out for sure. Definitely helps out tremendously.
Absolutely. So would anyone else like to jump in here and talk next, or do you have any questions for our fellow panelist, Anna?
I recently shifted mine to production just because I have a productive hygiene department. Both are above 40% perio. And they just kind of wanted it to be more of a win-win. In California, hygienists started a very high base pay now. It's $60 and up for starting hygienists.
Did you see that twitch in Bridget's eye?
Yeah, it's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And so I converted my practice to going out of network and being fee for service because I couldn't pay the hygienists at the rate we were being reimbursed. Like, for instance, with Delta, I would be losing money doing a really thorough appointment. And so we went out of network. And then once they saw their daily production immediately jump when we were collecting in full for the appointments, especially for SRPs, the difference being like $376 a quad versus the in-network fee of $91 to $121. It's a big difference. And so I think they wanted a piece of the pie. And so we evolved a model for giving them a percentage of some of what they produce.
And jumping into a fee for service practice, converting over from a PPO is something I have a lot of experience with, and I have a great passion for. As you guys, as members of TBOD, know, I've been pushing for people to go out of network for forever. And I remember, if I'm not mistaken, Nicole, you had a really rough day, and I actually called you, and I was like, "It's gonna be okay."
Yes, yeah, and there continue to be many rough days in dentistry, right? Every day you're throwing something, but definitely with the going out of network, with hygiene especially. In network, it's just abuse in terms of we've always submitted clinical attachment loss, radiographs, done everything to the standard of care of which I've been practicing for 20 years.
Right.
And now it's just denial. Oh, you can't do a gross debridement the same day as a comp exam. You can't do this, you can't do that. So there are just so many rules. And while we still play by the rules, it's just better to have an upfront relationship with the patient.
You actually get paid for it now. I mean,
yeah,
a huge
yeah.
difference.
Like, I don't want to devalue the services when someone needs scaling and root planing and periodontal therapy and things like, let's just say you're an advocate of PerioProtect trays or other products that aren't covered anyway. I don't want to have to reconcile 90 days after getting them healthy that this is why they didn't pay. So maybe you can jump on the phone and there was a frequency issue, or we don't know why they're denying this. It's really nice to take that out of the equation as well.
Absolutely. And we're going to jump over to Dr. Jorgensen in a couple of seconds here, but I do want to cap off what Dr. Vale is saying here by talking to people about looking at what their base costs to provide service are. So there's something called cost of goods sold, which means these are the things that go into what you have to do to produce a good or service, and that has to be taken off of your bottom line. And your cost of goods sold is going to, it's going to be your base upkeep, your bare minimum of your business, like your rent and your cam and your lights, your utilities. But you also have to look at things like plastic barriers that have gone up so much it's not funny.
Gloves.
Wages. Yes, gloves, masks, all of these things that have gone up so much. It used to cost $9. In 2012, whenever I started practicing, it cost $9 to turn a room. And I'm really neurotic about my costs. And so I know the cost for everything. I know a lot of you guys out there don't. But once you start looking at those, and I urge you to, because then this model is going to make so much more sense. When you look at rooms now, I believe the last time I looked at it was $35 to turn a room. Is that about right for you guys?
I think so.
Yeah.
So about
I'm
$35.
averaging mine above almost to 50.
Right. Well, you're in California, and so wages are higher.
Yeah.
Plus, there's a lot of add-on taxes there too, or add-on fees there. So you have to look at, you're losing $35 to $50 every patient turn. That's not every hour. That's every patient turn. So that's every procedure. And so you need to start looking at that in addition to the labor. And then you're going to realize that this model makes a lot of sense. Dr. Jarkinson, talk to us a little bit about your practice and how you've initiated this. I want you to go all the way back so people understand your unique perspective in this and why specifically I wanted you on this conversation. So talk to us a little bit about what you were before a dentist and then how that's changed the way you think about hygiene pay.
Well, I was a hygienist and I had, which is very, very common, 2 part-time jobs. In one of the jobs, I made 50% commission. And that was, the PPOs weren't involved very much back then. So a straight fee for service practice on both of these, 50% commission. The other one, this will tell you how old I am, but I graduated from hygiene school in 86. So I was making $13 an hour, which was decent in Georgia for hygienist. So 2 different practices. And there were advantages to both of those. The 50% commission, if the patient didn't show and it was the last one before lunch, I was out of there, had a long lunch, no big deal. The one where it was $13 an hour, I sometimes, and we saw patients on the hour, that means a 3-year-old took an entire hour. It didn't take an entire hour, but you kind of have to spend that time with them. So, I found out a lot of things from that. I found out you don't have to have standard appointment times. When I started my practice, we had 30 minutes for kids and we had anywhere from 40 minutes to 120 minutes for adults. It depends on what they come in as, if they're a new patient, if they have got a lot of stain, all those different things. But mostly I realized that the combination of an hourly base where they absolutely know when they're coming in, if a patient cancels, in between 2 other patients, they can still be on the phone. They can, do stuff around the office, but the commission, it makes our hygienists look and make sure, was that FMX done 3 years ago? Or they due again? Do they want fluoride? Is this patient a good candidate for sealants? They're going to suggest it before I ever get in the room because that's important for them too. It's great for the patient because the hygienist is looking out for them, but it's really great for us because our hygienists are co-therapists and they're as interested in making our practice grow as we are.
Absolutely. And let me rephrase that because you hit upon something that is so powerful here. And it's one of the things that dentists, God bless their hearts. and Brigitte, you know exactly what I mean by that since you're from the South as well.
Yes.
The problem is a lot of dentists, they see this pay on production. They say, oh, well, the hygienist is going to overtreat. Well, dentists are paid on production. Do the dentist overtreat? Is that an attack on being paid by production? What I believe it does is it makes the hygienist give a shit. It makes them conscientious and it makes them look for what this patient needs instead of going through the motions and talking about the patient's most recent vacation or blah, 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 or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm picking on you now.
Still talk about all of those things, but it makes them ahead of time look at the schedule and be like, okay, well, what does this patient really need? What can we add to their visit?
Absolutely. So I can't say Dr. Kelly, but she frankly should be with the level of knowledge that she has about HR.
I get enough spam on LinkedIn that call me Dr. Kelly because they don't even look at your profile. So
I love it. So, Kara, talk to us. You and I have been friends for years, and we've actually talked about these specific issues a lot. And I have been corrected 1 or 2 times. That's right, folks. I have been wrong. You heard it here first. So, talk to us a little bit about the proprieties whenever it comes to paying hygienists. One of the big things that people screw up is paying hygienists as an independent contractor. And I want you to actually cover why real quick, because that has a lot of pertinence in this situation. And then let's talk about anything else that we need to learn and we need to know about in paying hygienists on production so that we do so correctly?
So as far as paying them as an independent contractor versus an employee, and this is a hygienist who's temping for you for 3 days. This is a hygienist that you're hiring full-time. This is a hygienist you're hiring part-time. You are having them do the business of the business. You are having them come in and see your patients, use your tools, your team, present themselves as a member of your staff. They don't take the patient notes, they don't take the liability, and they don't generally have an opportunity for loss. They don't really qualify in most states. There are some states that allow hygienists to practice on their own, like 2, I believe, that allow them to practice on their own. And if they happen to have their own company and that's what they do, that may be a different scenario, but that is far from the majority. So rule of thumb for most practices is going to be that hygienist needs to be classified as a W-2 employee. Under the IRS standards for how to classify workers. Like I said, this doesn't matter if they're coming into temp or not. I know a lot of them come into temp and they want you to write that check at the end of the day. And maybe they argue with this. Maybe they say, well, I always get paid $10.99. Well, that's fine. But when the IRS comes and audits you, you're going to be the one that gets to pay the back taxes and the back wages owed or anything. It doesn't matter if they've paid it or not. You'll be the one responsible for it because it's your practice at the end of the day. That said, there's also classifications of employees, and this is where it can get kind of sticky with hygienists. There is a federal law called the Fair Labor Standards Act, and there may be some state laws that have some things that are different, but everybody has to follow Fair Labor Standards Act at the federal level. And what that says is that there's 2 different classifications of employees, exempt and non-exempt. Not every hygienist is qualified to be considered an exempt employee. So when you're talking about paying on production and not actually paying an hourly rate, if you have a hygienist who cannot be considered exempt and you have them only paid on production and they've got days where nobody shows up, hopefully that doesn't happen to you. Hopefully that's very rare. But if they did, and they're not working for anything that day, that may be in violation of this FLSA Act. That may not be permitted. You may have to have a minimum wage that balances out. And this may be the case if you have somebody coming on as a new hygienist who doesn't have a completely full schedule to begin with. You can have a non-exempt salaried or production-based pay, but you have to keep in mind that if they hit overtime or if they, if they go below minimum wage on that production, that you really have to get them up to what the federal law or state law in some cases, many cases, says. The difference between the two is if you have a hygienist who has gone to an accredited hygiene school for a 4-year degree that was accredited at the time that they went to school, they may be eligible for exempt status. If it's a 2-year degree or that was not an accredited school, even if it is now, if it wasn't accredited at the time that they were in school for it, they're not eligible for that exemption. So you have to take a look at that, at their background, if you're really going to classify them that as an exempt team member or treat them as an exempt team member and pay on production. That, by the way, was the thing that you had gotten wrong.
Yes, I recall. Thank you.
I
believe the word I said I used to describe it was a quagmire of liability.
I have other words for it, but yes, that one too.
So that's where we are, guys. So to legally do this, you almost definitely can't qualify. You can't label your hygienist as an independent contractor. So, but I think everyone here knows that.
Yeah.
Which is why you guys are here.
But you'd be surprised because so many of them will treat their temps as ICs.
I wouldn't be surprised. You
wouldn't be surprised. Okay. Some of your listeners might be surprised. You probably wouldn't be surprised.
I just stopped correcting people because they don't want to hear it. All right. So talk to us, ladies, if you don't mind, a little bit about and Dr. Jorgensen, Dr. Vane, either one of you who wants to go first is fine. Talk to us a little bit about the reactions and the just the basic day-to-day function of your hygienist on this production pay, and talk to us about how you do it, because you both do it slightly differently.
Mm-hmm. We do ours. They get about $15 or $16 an hour and then 20% commission. So they're paid a little bit less than an assistant, no matter what they're doing. And then the 20% though, because we're fee for service practice, they usually make between, I would say, $50 to $60 an hour. So, and that totals up with people being absent, people not showing up, because they make really good on the people that do show up. So we do it a little bit different. We don't have a base pay for the day and then bonus over that. They get paid hourly plus commission. And then for vacations, we do we do an average of their last 3 months or so, what they made hourly, and then do that for vacation pay. So they still get vacation pay that's not at the lower $15 an hour.
Okay. Dr. Vane, how do you guys handle it?
Unfortunately, mine is extremely high. And
Right,
part of that,
California.
it's not that I don't see the value of my hygienists. I value them, but the demands are high. So mine wanted their hourly, plus there's still their benefits. And so the model we came up with was their base pay. And if they covered above 3x that, including some of their benefits, then they would get 25% of that.
Okay.
In their chair. And we also have a bonus for the assistants and for the recare coordinator for them hitting goal, because they really work their butts off for having them hit goal every day. So the goal for production, though, is quite a bit higher. It's $1,800 a day for the hygienist.
Okay.
And just so you know, when we were in network, it was a struggle to even get them to a $1,200 a day or an $800 a day, and that's including everything. And so we also had to reconcile for our membership plan, which includes essentially like a second free cleaning. So it's like a lowered initial visit, and then our perio program, our cleanings and everything it was 20%. Now it's 10% off of our UCR. So that way it's win-win. The hygiene is still profitable. They're just getting a larger share of the profit than.
Absolutely. And for those of you who don't, first of all, Nicole, your mic is a little bit weak. I'm not sure.
Oh, okay.
If you can get closer to it, that would be better.
Okay.
For those of you who didn't hear what she said, they also have a dental savings plan, is what I like to call them, or a membership plan. Needs to be called a membership plan, cannot be called insurance. All these people who want you to pay them to run your plans, that's basically all they do is make sure it doesn't say it's insurance. You can do this yourself.
Yeah.
Yep, we do ours ourselves.
And you should, because you'll save yourself a lot of money. Nicole talked about what they did previously, which was a 20% discount, which is what almost everyone screws up and does the first time. I did myself.
Yeah.
And then you move it to a 15 or a 10%, or you have a staggered based upon what type of procedure it is, based upon lab cost or non-lab cost, which is what I ended up doing. If it was a lab cost, it was going to be a 10%. If it was a non-lab cost service, it was going to be a 15%, because you have a little bit more wiggle room and less fixed costs that are associated with it. Again, I'm neurotic. I know every single cost in my practice. Most dentists don't. So with that being said, I'm going to urge you to look into creating a dental savings plan. Contrary to what people will tell you, there is no law that says you cannot also give your insurance patients a dental savings plan. That's stupid, false, and just misleading. The truth is that according to the law, you actually have to offer it to them as well as your non-insurance patients. So be aware of that. But a dental savings plan, what do we have? 38% of our patients were on the savings plan.
Wow.
Roughly, I would say yes.
Yeah, from what I was told, I had a couple of people who assessed our practice, and they were like, "We can't help you. This is better than we've ever seen." So, but what we did is we sold it the right way. And I know you guys hate it whenever I talk about sales and dentistry, but sales makes the world go round. Sales is just connecting the person who needs something with the thing that they need in an ethical fashion, and everyone's happy. So the way that I sold my dental savings plan is that they were $360 a day. And because that way I could say, that's right, you can have the dental care that you need and deserve for less than $1 a day. Does that sound fair?
Yeah.
I'm surprised you didn't smirk at my, that sounds fair. That's one of my lead-in lines. One of the things that I did whenever I talk to dentists and talk to my assistants and my hygienists about how to speak to a patient, how to present information, you leave open-ended questions. But whenever you're ready to get a patient to commit to something, you leave a a question that they can only say yes or no to that shows what their reservations about the thing are. And so if I say, does that sound fair? And a person says yes, then nothing I can say before that can be unfair. And so I gave them a fair chance to understand it. We gave them a fair chance to ask questions. We gave them, everything was fair. And if they're being treated fairly, they go forward with the treatment. If they say no, well, then you say, well, talk to me about why. And then you know what their objections are. Because what you're really doing whenever you are connecting a person with the services that they need, you're finding the reasons they don't think they need it. You're showing them they do so that they own the problem. And then you are offering to help them to fix that problem. That's all sales is, guys. So don't cringe when you hear the word. And if you want some free sales techniques and free sales training, go to the Dear Doc podcast, watch the playlist called Sales and Influence. It's free. And it cost me over $200,000, at least $200,000 with all the shit we did, at least $200,000 to learn. So please just go help yourself. It's there. It's free. Learn. Okay. I'm off my soapbox. Sorry, ladies. So let's talk a little bit more about how your hygienist reacted to this pay scale, because this is different. And Kara, do you know any practices that you consult for right now that are currently using a pay by production versus a pay by hour?
I do have a couple of practices, yes. And actually, I think the keys to it is everything that you and both Dr. Jorgensen and Dr. Vane are saying, is that you're not just signing up with every insurance that's out there and taking whatever they decide to give you. You are actively making sure that the hygienists have more income to pull from. You can't have a production-based practice that's 100% PPO without giving them anything else. You can't do that without offering whitening, without offering fluoride, without offering some kind of training for how they can increase their production, or providing some kind of funnel of, we're bonusing our assistants, we're bonusing our front desk to get more patients through the door. We're doing this XYZ marketing. We have this membership plan, not insurance plan. We have this membership plan, or we're going out of network, whatever it is. We are actively trying to make you make money, because when you win, we win.
Yeah. That's the key thing, is when you win, we win.
Yeah.
I love it. So how did your hygienist react to this? And then I'm going to ask Anna what her thoughts are on it now, but I'm also going to ask her, and I'm giving you this time to think, because I know you hate it whenever I put you on the spot. I want you
Oh, you'll just put me on the spot. Thanks.
Yeah, but you don't hate it when I put you on the spot. So Anna has trained me over years to not do that to her. So I want you to think about how you would talk to a hygienist if you were a dentist who was implementing this plan, what things you would show them, what things you could teach them that would enable them to understand why this is better for them. So Dr. Jorgensen, talk to us a little bit about how your hygienist reacted to this. Obviously, it's different than what most dentists do whenever it comes to their pay. And so there's going to be probably some resistance there. So talk to me about that.
We started our practice with this. So, that's a little bit unique, and it was a very long time ago. However, my daughter bought a practice 3 years ago that was completely in network with everything. God
bless her soul.
Yeah, she ended up switching it to fee for service all in the first 6 months. Wow. And then because I was over there a lot, we talked about hygienists based on production. And so one of her hygienists now is on the same program where it's in Alabama. So it's a little bit cheaper. I think it's maybe $10 or $12 an hour plus 20% commission. So in Alabama, the hygienists don't make as much. They top out at maybe $28, $30 an hour. And her hygienist makes around $40 an hour doing it this way. So, it didn't take a lot of discussion for her all she had to do was do the math and say, okay, on these last 3 months, this is what you would have made if we did it this way. And this is what you made. And when she saw that there was an increase, she's like, hey, that's cool. I'll go with that. So it wasn't a hard discussion at all. And, it seems counterintuitive that we wouldn't want to pay our hygienist more, but we're making more because they're so much more interested in doing the x-rays that are necessary, doing the fluoride that's necessary, doing everything that they can within their realm of the practice. So it's a win-win.
Absolutely. Dr. Vane?
Well, for me, actually, that's when I was an associate, I didn't want to lose my base pay just because I had been in a lot of offices where they would schedule me these crap days, not try and actively fill my schedule. And I felt like I was going to take the hit for other team members not doing their work. And then when he presented me with, you would have made this if we were on production, I was like, oh, well then let's try that. And then it did get me more involved in making sure my schedule was full, fill it with this, call this, do that. And so I have seen that with my hygienists as well. I think the problems that it created were then they were becoming overly demanding with my assistants. And I'm like, my assistants are for me.
Mhm.
You're not on assisted hygiene. You still have to work with the scheduling blocks and making sure you're getting them reappointed for the correct things in the continuing care box. There's a lot of work on the back end where you're not, to build a productive day, you're not just doing it every day like, oh, let's add this production. If you do it strategically by redoing your schedule blocks so that every day has SRPs and whatnot built in, and they're not just plugging in perio maintenances or whatnot, then you will be able to always almost come close to or exceed goal if you're following the structure that's in place.
Nicole,
That's the challenge is, is it
no,
my
no,
mic
that's,
again?
that's okay. I was going to say, have I emailed you my my schedule template?
No, but I'd love to see it.
Okay, I think I may have posted on TBOD. And for anyone who's out there, if you take a look in files on TBOD, almost everything I ever created for my office is on files in TBOD. That includes my block scheduling, which basically what I did is I made a calculator so that you could put into Excel how much you want to make per day, and it will automatically adjust what your hourly production has to be. And then you can have large block, small block, and crown seat / emergencies.
Wow. Is this on your website?
It should actually be on the Business of Dentistry. I need to actually put them all on DocHoff investments as well, but I've been lazy. I need to do that.
Yeah, no,
Good
that
idea.
sounds
Thank you.
fantastic because what it wasn't highlighting is as a hygienist, if you're making continuing care in the back office, say, and then they override 6 months from now an SRP block or a new patient block, and then they put in right in the middle perio maintenance. Now we have a half-hour gap.
Absolutely.
And it was really something that's been difficult for them to see without saying things like, oh, we'll just move this patient up and then move this one down and we'll recreate
Absolutely.
it. It's like, no, this mistake was made 6 months ago and you made it again for 6 months from
Right.
now. So stop letting patients drive the schedule. with
I'll
things
give
like,
you guys, I'm going to give you guys a piece of magic. This is, it sounds so silly. You watch her head whenever I start talking about this. It sounds so silly, but what I would do is I color coded the blocks. Pink, was it pink for high production?
I don't remember.
No, I don't
To
either.
be honest.
There were pink, green, blue, and yellow. All right. Now, yellow was emergency / crown seat. That's the only place you can put one, period. What ends up happening is there's a psychological effect on the person who's scheduling. They only see those blocks. And so whenever you have them and you tell them, okay, well, I want this scheduled in this kind of time frame. I want this scheduled in this kind of time frame. If you don't block the schedule for it, what happens is they'll put those things anywhere, right? So by blocking them, they'll put them only in those areas. Well, if you don't color them, they still think of them as the same thing, even though they know better. So if you color them, what'll happen is they automatically think, oh, that's a pink, and they start looking for pinks. They don't see shit else. They only see the pink blocks. And so that's the only place they'll ever put them. We also had a rule that you could not override a block except for 48 hours before the day of, because that keeps a lot of other problems from happening too. Just like you said, 6 months out.
Yeah, we have the same issues is getting them to see that high production proc isn't a limited exam. Just because the doctor, they were looking at more like doctor time, like, oh, the doctor's going in for that, right? And I'm like, but there's $0 or redo or this.
Right.
But the hygienists also need to see that as well, because we were including our 6-week re-eval, but it's also meant for oral hygiene instruction to go over products. We do salivary testing like the HR5. We do perioprotect trays. We do a lot of other oral health adjuncts. We like Stella Life and Dental Urban. Everyone has their thing. Right. But they're supposed to be using that at their own discretion for add-ons, laser bacterial reduction, whatever. And what they were instead doing is, oh, now I have a gap, so I'll make this 6-week re-eval an hour, not talk about this, and do something else during that other half hour. And then they're not seeing how they're undercutting their production each day by not
thinking about
following.
gases and solids. Are you? So we had this thing in the office where we talked about different personality types, and we had to be aware of what and who we were. So guys, everyone falls into one of 3 different personality types. Would you say it's fair? You didn't believe me at first.
Yeah, no, I didn't.
So they're either solids, they're gases, or they're liquids. And the reason I came up with that is because we as doctors had to go through all this damn physical chemistry stuff, and all of us know exactly what those means, and our hygienists had too. So a gas will expand to fit whatever volume it's presented with. It is compressible to a point. Once the gas begins to heat up, you know that you have reached the point. You're laughing now, are you? I love you. So when the gas starts to heat up, you know you've reached the point at which it's at maximum compression. You want to back off of it a little bit. What that means is that you can continue to consolidate those appointments and push and push and push until you get to a point where your hygienist begins to be flustered. Then you give a little bit, add another 5 minutes onto that time period. Your hygienist will naturally fall into rhythm there, or your assistants, or your other associates. It works for everyone. So what will happen is you will get the maximum production out of them for the time allotment without causing undue stress. And the reason that you've done that is you've compressed them, right? Solids can't change. You drop a solid into a container, it's the same shape, it's the same size, it's the same consistency, it never changes. Solids, you can stack things on. You can build a practice on solids, and you should. They are a known quantity, and you can depend on them. However, when you put a solid under too much pressure, what happens? It breaks. It fractures. You destroy it. You have to be careful with solids, because whenever you have a solid employee and you try to press them too hard, you have to watch carefully, because there's not a lot of sign before they fracture, because they are internally self-sufficient. They don't like showing that they need help, and so they'll keep it in until they break. The third type of personality is the liquid. A liquid will fit whatever container you put it in without trying to take up the whole container. Liquids are your best employees. You cannot build on a liquid, though, because liquids need that structure. They need to know exactly what they need to do, when they need to do it, and they will freaking do it for you. The problem is that if you try to build a structure on a liquid, it just shoots out all over the place, right? It has to be contained. Those are your 3 base personalities of anyone you're going to hire. And guess what? It's for you too. So you have to figure out who you are and who everyone else is, and that will help you with your management. And it'll help you to make sure that you have people in the right places and that you deal with them correctly. Anyone who has children knows that you parent differently for each child. You know, I tell my kids, my daughter said, "You didn't do that for Valen." And I said, "That's because Valen had a different dad." And she's like, "What?" I said, "Yeah, I wasn't the same person for him as I am for you. And I've learned since then, and you're a different person. You wouldn't want the same dad as Valen had, would you? Valen need me to kick his ass every day. You don't need that, do you? You're responsible. You get your shit done." So same thing for employees. All right. That's my soapbox for the day.
Search engine optimization, or SEO, is a hallmark of an exceptionally visible website. Here at Art of Dental Marketing, we know that it's crucial. It bumps you up to the top of Google search results and more. But did you know that it's also one of the only online marketing channels that can continue to pay dividends over time? At ADM, we expertly craft your online presence to help you evolve with modern marketing. For more information, search artofdentalmarketing.com or call us at 816-631-0954.
All right. So that brings us to Kara. Is there anything HR-wise that we should have asked that we didn't ask?
Well, both of the examples that were given here are talking about current employees. I have found that one of the most difficult things to do whenever you are working with a production model is hire a hygienist who has been used to hourly only. There's no right or wrong way to do this, but if you have somebody who's been there and who can see those numbers, they worked with you through those numbers and they can say, yes, absolutely, I would have made more. You're going to have a very difficult time trying to explain and get somebody on board, get that buy-in from someone who isn't used to that model and doesn't know you, doesn't necessarily trust you, is on Facebook hearing all of the drama and all of the things, which is so not helping right now. So you have to have something prepared for them to show them that this is what you would be making. And you have to be secure in the fact that you even need this new person coming on. A lot of times when you're hiring a hygienist, you're hiring them so that you have more capacity to grow your practice. Well, that's not great for them if they're not going to get, 100% or 80% work. They're not be able to take home as much as the rest of the hygienists until that base builds up. And so you have to have your marketing in place. You have to have your team in place. You have to have some willingness to shift the schedule a little bit, or you have to have some way to keep them secure. And whether that's a little bit higher base for a day rate or an hourly rate, for the first 6 to 12 months while they're building up their own patient base within the practice, just like you would do with an associate. You need to treat them that way and have those conversations in that way. So that you can bring on somebody and they understand and they have that buy-in that this is a good step for me and this is going to make everybody more money.
Some fantastic points there. Two things real quick, and then I'm going to let Dr. Jorgensen jump on it because I saw her chomping at the bit earlier. First thing is and guys, a lot of you are going to disagree with me on this. And Anna, you can tell them, I was completely transparent. Whenever it came to finances, everyone knew what every cost was. It was a team effort.
Yes.
And when you do that, then people don't whine about their salaries because they know they're getting what they're worth because they know what they produce. The second thing, you know what? I forgot what the second thing was. That first one was so important that it shoved the other one out of my head. I'll remember it eventually. Dr. Jorgensen, I know you had something to say.
When I was hiring hygienists, we started with this program, but obviously I didn't have the same hygienist for 30 years, although I did have two that were 14 and 15 years. So that was pretty good. But I would bring them into the office. I would show them the production reports from the past 12 months. And I would show them exactly what that hygienist had made. We tended not to lose people because we also have on-site childcare. So if somebody came into our office, was a mom and was a hygienist, they didn't go anywhere because they loved our office. But, some husbands moved or, something like that. So we would have to get another person. But if you showed them, this is the production reports, this is our QuickBooks of what our hygienist made last year, there's a lot of buy-in there. They're like, okay, obviously you're telling the truth. And we didn't screw around either. It's, it's literally, you could see what your production report was, take 20% of that, add that to your hourly, and that's exactly what you got. So we didn't discount anything. Or memberships. We're part of a membership program. Well, we have our own, and I paid them strictly on, what the actual, fees were. I didn't screw around and say
that was what I was going to bring up.
Yeah.
When you have a membership plan, you have to pay people on what you would have collected, not what you did on the membership plan. A lot of doctors don't get that. It scares them. Don't let it scare you.
Shouldn't. Yeah.
No, and it sounds like you were treating them like the healthcare providers that they are. And I see a lot of negative talk on social media and just in conversations in general about practices that don't treat hygienists that way. But if you're going to pay them on that model, pay them effectively as you would an associate, then you need to treat them like a healthcare provider, like a partner in growing your practice.
Like people who can give anesthesia.
Texas, interesting.
Hopefully,
hey, I think it just passed.
Not yet.
Dr. Vane.
There's some caveats to that. So one, I never got them to care about their day sheet, even if it was like, hey, just make sure that everything you walked out today is on there. So the patient didn't leave with something in their bag by accident, whatever. Never could get them to sign off until there was something in it for them. But it's also layered in that, let's just say I have other bonuses, like if they were going to start whitening trays or peri-protect trays or a scan, they can, if they do an Invisalign start, but they have to know that they have to start it, not slide it to my assistant and say, can you scan this patient right now for peri-protect trays? And then you deliver them on your side, but I want my cut. And so that was a little harder for them to see. But it was also empowering for some of my other team because one made the comment the other day, I really depend on this bonus. I'm really driven by this because I want to supplement my income for my daughter's summer camps, and I'm all by myself. I'm a single mother. And so there's a lot of extras where it's empowering when they see that what they put in is what they get back. It's just making all the pieces work together where someone's not on production model. It did create some strife where they're like, I don't have time to take out my own trash. I don't do that. I'm a producer, and it created some friction almost immediately with my other back office who are like, oh, so we have to do all your instruments and do everything so you can hit your production goals, but what about us? And so there's a lot to reconcile when initiating this, besides just bringing on a provider who wants to be productive and involved in the business and invested in the business. I also found it was great to give them bonuses for things like getting good 5-star reviews. One was very motivated by that. She got 7 last month. And
guys, do you know how you get 5-star reviews? You ask for them.
Yeah.
If you don't ask for reviews, you don't get reviews, people.
Yeah. Yeah. And just making sure you're spending the time to develop the relationships.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
One thing that we did, and this was planning the office though, is each hygienist has 2 rooms. So it made it so much easier for them to go to their next patient. That also helped us condense our appointment times a little bit. And then either they clean their room when they get done with that patient, or sometime within that 40 minutes, an assistant would go in there, or even a front desk person would go in there, because we all see it as a team. You know, we've got to be prepared for that next patient. So I don't know, we don't have a lot of back office strife so much. Everybody's kind of working together.
And
all that's a culture and an expectation setting thing.
Yes, exactly. I hate the term back office, because back office automatically means your culture is one of segregation. Yeah. And there is no such thing as a back office. We're all team members, you know. So one of the things that I will say on the assisted hygiene side of things is that it does take new systems. We try, you remember those, do you? We tried assisted hygiene and they were simply too inefficient to work as fast as Anna was on her own. And it was my fault because I tried to use someone who was afloat between clinical and hygiene, and that just wouldn't work. If I were to go back and do it again, I think I would do a sterilization technician who was also x-ray and hygiene room turnover. But we were in kind of a small situation. We were producing and collecting, since we were fee for service, 1.5 million out of 3 chairs working 4 days a week. So we didn't get up much. It was pretty much
slide from room to room.
Exactly. That's pretty much all it was. And Anna was only working in 1 room. Whenever she said 2 rooms, I saw that little twitch. She wished she had 2 rooms. But so there's a lot of ways to do this, guys. And that's the point I'm trying to get across here. It's not bragging like, hey, we did so much. What I'm saying is in 3 chairs, you can do this. You know, Bridget, how big is your practice? How many chairs did you have there? You have a couple of them.
We have 8.
8. And Nicole, how about you?
6.
Okay. So we're all over the board here, people. This works no matter what. So Anna, I want to segue into you talking a little bit about what we can do to bring hygienists into the fold on this idea. Some things that you think or have seen from hygienist conversations that we as dentists can do better so that we can bring them in this direction, because it's what we all want and need is for you guys to be, you know, clinical professionals like we are. So how do we achieve that?
I definitely believe it's a mindset issue. The hygienist definitely has to take ownership of, like you were all mentioning, being treated as a healthcare provider. Some hygienists, unfortunately, view themselves as just tooth cleaners, while I think the newer generation has an understanding of the oral systemic connection and how you can truly impact somebody's health when you start with prevention. And there is an abundance of services that we hygienists can offer to our patients, and becoming more clinically prepared to serve our patients is a big one. And that's something that I greatly appreciate from Dr. Hoffpower. He would have us training all the time, and he opened up many doors for me because of that. I was able to do anything from laser and Arrestin and fluoride, SDF. I mean, there's a ton of things. That's just a little bit of it all. At some point I wanted to do salivary testing. I never got to that point. But there's
fault. The cost wasn't there. Right?
There's just
it was too cost prohibitive to get what we needed at that time. But sorry.
Yeah. But it's since evolved, and through the salivary testing, it really does truly connect the mouth-body connection. Like, wow, you're really inclined towards these. Yeah, yeah.
Well, and as we're learning now more and more, I mean, I think that a dearth of information has come out over the past 3 or 4 years that connects inflammation to everything that's wrong with our society right now.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. Well, maybe not everything, but I'll hold my opinion on those other things. So, guys, of everyone here on this panel, is there anything that I should have asked you or that you wish to kind of get across that didn't come out so far, or something you just want to reiterate? You can get on your soapbox now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I see absolutely no anything bad about commission-based hygiene. I mean, our hygienists have been happier than any other hygienist that they meet in their groups and stuff like that, just because they're paid on what they do, not just by cleaning teeth. They get to participate in the whole office.
Yeah. I would say not only that, but with this age of burnout, which is really fatiguing doctors and hygienists, it allows you to consolidate your schedule more, where you could say, I can earn in 3 days what I would have earned in 5, and that's worth it to me. I'd rather work my ass off for 3 solid days and then go be with my kids, or have more time, or relax my back or neck, or whatever their issues are. I think it's important for retaining team long-term to give them some of these options, so you're not burning and turning people and they don't have that mundane, oh, now I'm doing another bloody prophy, and now I'm gonna just work with my broken instruments and give them a bottle of chlorhexidine, whatever. I think it helps people eliminate that fatigue, and when we're not fatigued, we show up better for our patients.
I agree.
And it helps them in a more realistic way. I have a client that I recently had this conversation with, actually, where she had evaluated what her hygienist was producing. And if you're going by the 1/3 model, she was producing about $41, $42, getting paid at about 48, and was asking for 62. And so
yeah. And there's a lot of that out there.
And she wanted to drop a day. She was working 4 days per week and wanted to drop, or it was either 5 to 4 or 4 to 5. So she wanted a much higher hourly rate that she wasn't producing so that she could work less time. And that doesn't make sense on an hourly model. Mm-hmm. It can make sense on a production-based model. Mm-hmm. I will say, I guess, for my last one little thing that I would put out there is, if you're going to move to this model, make sure that you are going to pay them for all of the production that they're doing. I've seen a lot of comments, and I've talked to a lot of associates that whenever they leave, the owners decided that they're not going to pay them for their last couple weeks of production because of whatever the reason. Sometimes they're trying to write it into contracts at this point. Your hygienist is not going to have that relationship with you. Please make sure that you pay them, even if you get that income 2 months later. If you're on insurance, for example, make sure that they're getting paid what they've actually done, because that's going to get you in far more trouble than what y'all are doing to associates in some cases.
I will say that this is a much easier model in a fee-for-service office, just because it's so easy to figure out exactly what production is, and it's not quite as easy when you're doing adjusted production.
Well, and if you're taking the payment up front, then it's not a problem at all to give them their final paycheck, assuming they even leave.
Well, that, and guys, if you are a PPO practice, make sure you're filling out your blue book. If you have Open Dental, I can't remember what it's called in Dentrix, and what it's called in EagleSoft, or CareStack or whatever. But if you don't have your blue book filled out correctly, you're never going to have the correct estimates. And if you have the correct estimates, you always know how much money you're going to get. It just do it.
Mhm.
All right. So Anna, did you have something to add?
I would just say having mutual respect for one another, both the doctor and the hygienist, collaborating with one another is very important. That's something that I greatly appreciated from Dr. Hoffpower, is that he treated me as a provider, and we would talk about even implant cases, perio involvement, all of this stuff. And it made my job so much more enjoyable.
But it made you understand why I thought the way I thought, which is why I did it.
Yep.
So great. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And actually, to that note too, trying to incorporate it daily into huddle has been a struggle for me, but it's an insistence on my part of like, here's doctor's goal. We're this far from goal. Here's hygienist goal 1 goal, hygienist 2 goal. How are we going to help? What if Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday fell apart? I need everyone's help. Let's look at this together. I really think unifying everyone on what the goals are and the why is really important also. So they know how to feed me and I know how to feed them. Like we make sure, for instance, if someone finished all their restorative, hey, do they have their next hygiene visit scheduled? Oh my goodness, they don't. Let's get you back up front and we're going to talk about this again. And so to make sure it's mutually beneficial as providers, that we're supporting each other's care that we're trying to provide.
So one of the things that I found that was very, very effective in our practice, one of the systems that I implemented was gamification. Do you remember the grab bag?
I don't think I was there when you
That's
did the
true,
grab bag.
Ricardo, who was there. So what we did to get these systems into place, you kind of have to, my kid, Valen, my son, he would never go to the bathroom. He'd always pee in his diaper. It was took forever. So what I started doing is trained him the same way I would a dog. Don't get on me. Train kids and dogs the same way. Anytime I could get him to go to the bathroom, I would give him M&M. Man, this kid was so sweet motivated. It wasn't funny. So it got to the point where once we finally had him going to the potty, he would use the bathroom. He'd stop. I went to the bathroom, Daddy. And then he'd hold it, he'd waddle out for a while, and he'd go, I have to go to the bathroom, Daddy. And he'd waddle back in, he'd pee a little bit more. So he got to the point where he was like trying to get all these M&Ms. I'm like, okay, the jig is up. I know what's going on here. But my point is that is something that gave me an idea for my team members. So what I did is I went out and I got $500 in cash, varying denominations. And I also bought gift cards, bought another $1,000 worth of gift cards, various and sundry places. And we put them into this great big Santa looking sack. And whenever we would do our morning huddle, as we're going over our numbers and we're saying, okay, hygiene production needs this, doctor's production needs this, we're this much short. Everyone would be looking at the records at the same time. And then someone would shout, hey, Miss So-and-so has a such and such that needs to be done. Can we work that in today? Yes, we can. Go ahead and reach in the grab bag. It gets them into the habit of thinking that way, right? You don't have to continue the grab bag. Once that has started, that habit is formed, and they're going to continue to do that. And then you can start sporadically doing the grab bag. You kind of wean them off of it, right? It is the best way to train team members whenever it comes to getting them to adopt new behaviors that you want to see, except for my reading club. That just never worked for them. No one ever read the damn books except for Anna.
That was an epic fail.
That was an epic fail. It really was. One of the things I will never suggest you do is a reading club. So now that we've covered pretty much everything we meant to cover, I am going to throw a little bit of napalm into this dumpster and flick a match in and get some opinions from all of you guys on a new phenomenon that is emerging. Now, everybody knows that over COVID, we got all these new services, right? And we got all this touchless and contactless stuff going on. So everyone moved to kiosks. Well, on the kiosk, one of the things that they notice is if they put a tip amount, people always click the middle one because people are stupid and we're sheep and we just click the center one. And so what they did is they offset. They began at 10%, then they went to 15%. Now the minimum is 18% on most kiosks. And they've discovered there's a 33 to 38% increase in tips per customer, per server because of this. So now people are implementing it in completely people-less things. Like Walmart is going to be implementing it, has already rolled it out at their cashierless checkout. You can tip Walmart now for the right of checking yourself out. I'm waiting for them to give you a broom when you walk in now and go, there's a cleanup on aisle 4. I'm just waiting for that because I know it's coming. But the long-winded thing here is to get to this. Some dentist offices are now allowing hygienists to ask for tips. Let's have a fire round. Jorgensen, what are your thoughts?
No way. No.
It's just no. Nothing else. No.
I've had people from other countries try to tip me and, passed, but no, we would never do that. It's just uncool.
All right, Kara.
No, I'm sorry. And I say that as somebody who's actually technically still licensed as, but has spent a decade working as a licensed massage therapist. And I worked with tips. People tipped me. I would never want to tip a healthcare professional. That is totally different than working, with your hairstylist or your nail tech or your massage therapist. I'm sorry, not a fan personally.
I don't know. Hairdressers are the only other profession that are currently still required to test on a living human being to get their license. So maybe there's not that much of a difference between us. Anna.
I would agree. I don't think it's a good idea, especially because it and also turns into a logistical nightmare with like taxes and everything. And so I completely agree.
And Dr. Vane.
I like to say the greatest compliment I can receive instead of a tip is a referral or a warm review. But I truly appreciate that. And just leave it at that. And then they can get a bonus from me for the good review or whatever versus worrying about tips.
There you go. You can say, instead of tipping me, why don't you go and leave me a 5-star review and put my name in there and I'll get extra.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, Dr. Vane, my wording on that, I actually stole from Christopher Phelps. If anyone out there hasn't done Dr. Phelps's training, do so. It's fantastic.
Principles of persuasion.
Absolutely. Right? Dr. Cialdini. So the way that I would say it, and you probably would go word for word with me here, is thank you so much. I have to say that I truly enjoyed working with you today. I would love to have more patients just like you. If you know anyone who needs a good dentist, please refer them over to us. It really would mean a lot. And that's it. And you get lots of referrals that way. I think we've covered a lot of ground here. So we're gonna sign this off. We didn't get any questions from our audience, which makes me wonder if we're really live. And if not, then that's all right. I'll post it later. Guys, if you do have questions, I am going to let Miss Kelly into the group for 2 weeks. Yay! And Jorgensen and Vane are already there. You can just tag them if you have a specific question, or if you don't have a specific question, or a specific person you want to answer it, just ask your question and any of them will be able to answer. Kelly, as always, when I allow you in the group, you're not allowed to talk, you're not allowed to like, you're not allowed to laugh, you're not allowed to do anything except for answer the things under this one post. And then you get ripped out of the group untimely in 2 weeks. All right, guys, that's about it. Anna, would you like to be in the group for 2 weeks so you can answer any questions people have about talking to their hygienist?
Sure, absolutely.
Right, fantastic. All right, guys, you heard it here first. 2 non-dentist members are going to be appearing in the group for 2 weeks. And if they get past that nasty letters, and I'll fix it for you. Guys, thank you all so much for your time today. I hope that you had a good time here, and I hope that it wasn't, for those of you who haven't done a lot of podcasts, I hope it wasn't too uncomfortable. Is there anything you want to leave us with before I sign off?
Nope.
All right, fantastic. Hey guys, you have just spent the last hour listening to the droning sound of my voice and these lovely other voices that are here to answer your questions about hygiene and being paid on production. If you have any further questions about hygiene compensation, whether that be classifications for Ms. Kelly, or if it is the practicalities of running a production-based hygiene payment system, go ahead and drop those questions down below. We'll be glad to get to them. Again, thank you for being listeners. I hope that you found this to be profitable use of your time. Have a fantastic day. We'll talk to you later.